Someone's come to visit you.
Did you see that, Alex? He smiled again.
Why don't you hold him for a minute?
I just don't want to drop him on his head or something.
Don't be silly. It's a baby. They don't bite.
No, this is... One, please. Better make it two.
Oh, sorry.
Jenny.
Alexander. Your hair has a lot more grey in it. It's also thinning.
And you look exactly the same as high school. Apart from all the wrinkles.
What's going on with you in filmmaking?
Not much. I'm also living with my parents again.
Oh my God. Do you still have a thing for Stephanie?
Correction. We still have a thing for each other. It's just that there's been all this build-up, and I feel like if it's not the most amazing, magical thing in the whole world, you'll think we failed.
Oh, I think that. Hi. Come on in. Look what I found.
No.
You fell.
Do we have to? What do you do when your dream comes true and nothing happens?
Get a new dream, I guess.
I'm not stupid.
No, it's not like that, trust me.
You're cool if we're not totally exclusive.
Why do you always have to label everything? To my new best friend on her birthday. Are you still doing work?
Can I come over?
This isn't one of your stories and everything is going to turn out just as you planned.
You don't know what you're talking about.
You're just going to run away again when things get too tough. I know you, Alex. You're just a boy.
One day soon it'll all be gone.
Well, no one can be prepared for getting old.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Hey man, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Is everything like in terms of in terms of my audio and everything? Is everything fine?
Indeed. You
Okay.
sound good.
Great. How are you, man?
All right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very pleased that we get an opportunity to speak and that you enjoyed the film and
It's entertaining.
yeah, thank you very much. And I obviously been listening to your podcast and
Thank you.
I thought they when you said like, I'm not sure what I could do, but I can sort of shine a light on films. And I thought that was I just thought that was an awesome sentiment and something that is incredibly sort of valuable in these sort of COVID times. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. I glad that people are connecting to that. At least some of the population in our country is,
Yeah. Well, you guys, you guys will have a new president soon. Who will hopefully be taking some measures
Yeah.
to.
we might reestablish our relationship with New Zealand.
Yeah, I certainly
Or-
hope so.
I don't know how closely we work together in a geopolitical sense, but whatever it is, it's probably going to get better again. I don't know.
Yes.
We've become such isolationists. It's been such a 4-year nightmare, I can't
Yeah.
tell you what it's
Oh,
like living here.
100%. Yeah, it's crazy for us, the rest of the world, to see it from the outside looking in,
Oh yeah.
and see a country that is, or a president that is so unpresidential. I think it's just, there's so many things wrong with it, but I guess we could go on all day talking about all
Now,
that sort of thing.
one thing
So,
I'm
yeah.
noticing before we
Yes.
continue is that you're looking off. So
Yes.
you're looking at me, but I'm not. I'm probably over
Okay.
there somewhere, but not in your cameras on another screen, maybe.
Yeah, let me just shift.
Do that
Is
so
the-
it looks for viewers. Yeah, you're
Is that
closer.
better?
Yeah, it's a lot better. You're looking up a little bit, but it's still much better. I'm probably I'm not in a good habit
Yes,
of
I
looking
am looking up.
into the camera all the time because it's just not a natural. I'd prefer looking at my guest.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Thanks.
Sweet.
So you're not the first New Zealander. I don't know if you've done any due diligence, but you're not the first New Zealander on my show, but
I'm a little bit disappointed, actually. I kind of thought that I might be.
oh, well, I'll purge him. No, but you are the first that where you're New Zealander, where I'm actually podcasting from where you're in New Zealand. Like
I
the
see.
only other New Zealander, I think, unless I'm forgetting somebody, was in New York. In fact, he had a film in the Brooklyn Film Festival, which I'm sure sounds even, more impressive than it really is. It's actually kind of like a very local festival. And this guy, he had a very good film. It was really good. And we ended up having nowhere to meet. And this was obviously so far before COVID, that the idea of doing this in any other way, seemed like he was in New York. Let's meet in person. And so we ended up recording it in Central Park. So it was kind of,
That's great.
yeah, it was fine. We sat on a park bench, and it was just audio. So
That's awesome. Who was it? What was his name?
I knew you were going to ask.
Or what was the name of the film?
I meant to look too. I forgot his name now, which is really embarrassing because there's a good chance he might watch this.
Can you remember the name of the film?
I'm going to edit this so I don't sound like a complete jerk. But I'm going to look it up because I'll do it through the phone so I don't. Let's see. Okay, yeah, because I have sort of a notes on everybody who comes on, and I'm sure he had the strongest film, I think, and he ended up winning at least one of the prizes in the festival because it really was a strong, well acted, a really good cast. Let's see. All right. It's okay. Are you okay with time though, or it's?
Yeah, man. I've got all the time in the world.
Okay. It's early evening, right?
It is. We're actually having the New Zealand industry is having their guild event Christmas party this evening. So I will at some point be going off to that, but that's not for a couple of hours yet. So
that sounds like that leads me to believe that New Zealand has gotten beyond the pandemic.
You're right. So we've had 2 lockdowns over here, specifically where I live, which is Auckland City, has had 2 lockdowns, and the country as a whole has had 1 lockdown. After that lockdown, subsequently, we've managed to have no community transmission. So essentially, and because we're an island, so we have everyone come in. They have a 14-day quarantine where they're tested, I think, 3 times, and then obviously released subsequent to that if they don't have COVID. And that system has worked, generally speaking. So now we're back to having events and stuff like that. There's still
good.
You still have to scan in to places and stuff like that, so people can track where you're going and that sort of thing. And there's still sort of safety protocols around wearing masks on public transport and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, life is almost normal, and sort of has been for some time.
Well, good on you, as we say in the States.
Very fortunate.
And with the inevitable introduction of the vaccine over the next 12 months, it's only going to get more normal.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good news. So I found it. I found the filmmaker's name is Dustin Fenley.
Dustin Fenley with Mega Time Squad, was it?
The name of the film is called
Stray.
Yes.
Stray. Right. Yes. I do know Dustin, just very sort of just as an acquaintance, and I actually had a chat with him at one of the last guild parties that I went to about his process of making Stray, because he raised all the money, or most of the money himself by through basically calling investors, and it was a crazy story. But I guess the lengths that you go to get your films done, and awesome guy.
Yeah, and I think that if I remember, it's been about a year and a half, roughly, since he was on. But I recall I got very interested in hearing him talk about raising money and what he went through. There were some issues with the either production or distribution or something. Well, it couldn't have been distribution yet because it was still in the festival circuit, obviously, but there was something going on with I know with the production of the film that where there were some challenges and there were certain things he could and couldn't really discuss.
Right. Yes. Well, I
So,
probably shouldn't say too much in case I
well, I
say
think it's
anything
ancient.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I'm sure it's fine now, but that's yeah, but it's worth listening to if you get a chance. It's
I will absolutely. Is that on
June.
the June? Okay.
Yeah, it well actually this is interesting. You know what? I actually think it's only on the I don't think I put it on the podcast. I think it only made it to also to the YouTube channel
Okay.
because
I'll
of
check it out
just
there.
I was overextending at the I didn't realize how much I was overextending at the time. Now tell me, are you is so Older, which is your film, your rom-com,
Yes.
is it but that is available streaming platform, so you're done.
That's right. So yeah, it's available now on Amazon Prime and Tubi and Google Play, and it will be sort of, I imagine, released on YouTube TV or what YouTube Films or whatever it is, and
Okay.
probably a bunch of other streaming in the sort of upcoming months. But yes, so it's sort of available in all English-speaking territories via Amazon Prime at the moment. Yeah.
Well, it's a terrific film. I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's very well. It's funny. It's sexy. It's that your cast is great. The leading man,
Is,
you know,
yeah,
I don't know where you found the guy, but I think you could do better. So I'll
yeah,
try to say.
maybe for the next one I can.
Well, you wrote it and directed it, and
Yes, I did. Yeah,
that's quite a bit to was I mean, I guess you have to really lean on your crew then, right? Certain key members of your crew in order to juggle those balls, right? Keep them all
absolutely. So I wrote, directed, edited, and produced to some
actually
degree.
editing seems it might been them. Are you an editor by
I am by
profession?
necessity more than so. I've edited quite a lot of my own projects through the years, or come on and assistant edited. Like I have a certain style and a certain way that I like to cut, which I have found that editors have struggled to get the rhythm of quite, I guess, when I've worked with other people. So so that was, but the editing was maybe the trickiest because you sort of do lose your objectivity, and you sort of can obviously 100% lose your perspective at times when you're sort of deep into it. But yes, I absolutely lean very much on my crew, especially my sort of director of photography, Adam St. John, to sort of really push through in terms of how we were going to set up the scenes and sort of block everything. I would sort of be like, well, you do your thing, man, and then I'm going to work on my performance and sort of and how we get through that. So you think about the technical and I'll focus on the emotion sort of thing. And so I certainly leaned very heavily on him throughout the process, and also everyone, you know, that was working on it, you know, was ready to sort of to pitch in and do whatever they needed to do.
How much? So this also, I imagine, anytime you make a film, the pre-production, the amount of work you do ahead of time, which is, I guess, editing on some level. I mean, if you think about it, you will benefit you, right? So especially if you're directing and acting in it during the production. So, right. So you plot it out. I mean, how much of that blocking and of that kind of specific production work do you work out ahead of time?
Well, I mean, the script came together pretty quickly in terms of like it sort of came together over a couple of months, and then there was sort of quite of an intensive rewriting process when I was working with the actors specifically. So we had sort of cast, and as we were sort of rehearsing, I was rewriting at the same time. If anything, I would have said that I probably could have done another couple of passes of the script, because I think the initial script was maybe 120 or 130 pages. So it was very dense with dialogue, and a lot of the stuff that I ended up cutting out that I thought ultimately was not necessary or could be said without saying anything, was, you know, stuff that then adds, you know, hours or days to the production. And so if I had been a little bit more discerning in that process, but it was kind of, I was rushing towards a window of time which we had like an opening to shoot. So my director of photography was available to come over because he's normally based in Australia, and he was sort of available to come over and film. I had sort of a block of time off that I was leading up to away from my day job, and I was actually in the middle of post-production on my first feature film, which was, so I kind of was stepping away from that at the same time. So we sort of had to jump right into it and jump out, but it also meant then that the post-production process is extended because the edits and sort of rewriting and a bit of reshooting and that massaging of it, it was more unpolished by the end of than it could have been had I probably invested a little bit more time. But I guess that whole process was, I guess, over maybe three or 4 months before we sort of jumped into the actual shoot. So it sort of came together very quickly because, you know, the idea was, you know, this is a sort of a micro budget film. This is a very low budget film. So the idea was to move quickly on it. It was just the, unfortunately, that the post-production part of it did not maintain that level of
Momentum?
urgency.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
momentum is a better way to put it. Yes. So
Okay.
that was the issue. Yeah.
What is the relationship between the film community or the film industry and the government, or is there programs set up for helping with financing for film in New Zealand?
There is. So essentially over here, what we have is the New Zealand Film Commission. And the Film Commission is like a sort of a government entity or that dispense grants to make films over here. And that is actually the primary way that films are made over here. So everyone goes to the Film Commission with their film idea. They're given development money to write a script or maybe even to develop a sort of a proof of concept. And then you sort of go through stages. So you go through round one and then you do a rewrite, you go through round two, and then you try to attach maybe overseas investment. And then it's on to, pre-production and so you kind of have to make it past 3 or 4 steps to actually get to shooting your film. And it normally involves having to have a overseas sales agent and some level of investment from an overseas company as well. So the Film Commission used to outright sort of fund films, and I think now there has to be some monetary commitment from elsewhere as well. Before I could be wrong about that, but so my first film was funded through the Film Commission. I was hopeful that they would be interested in this one, and I brought it to them at the script stage, and they were not interested. And I sort of, I guess partly out of like hubris, I was sort of well, I can do it myself then, and I'll sort of prove that it was I'll show you sort
Their
of
mistake.
mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This might be in the territory where Dustin and I were in. I don't know. But
Yes.
did you get feedback about why they weren't eager to support your film?
Not really. I think that if I'm being sort of, reflective and honest with myself, the Film Commission gives you one shot to
I see.
because they sort of give you one shot, and they don't tell you that they give you one shot, and none of this is explicit in any way because they can't be explicit, but they sort of give you one chance, and if you don't hit it out of the park, and I mean way out of the park,
Peter
then
Jackson out of the park.
yeah, Peter Jackson out of the park. But even he came back in a different time with the Film Commission where, he was championed as a director. And even though, if you look back at Bad Taste, while it was a remarkable achievement for, the way that he did it, it showed promise, I guess, and then he would go on to make truly great things after the fact. But Bad Taste itself is maybe not that that masterpiece. It is kind of a very funny but schlocky B movie, and so I thought that, I had hit it far enough out that maybe, but my first film was still not finished. And I think that they had a sort of a wait and see mentality. And so they weren't going to support anything that I was going to do. And I'm just speculating here, until that film had come out, until that had been a proven thing. But, a lot of the times you don't necessarily know exactly why or why not you do receive funding. It seems to be, trends at the time, what they're sort of interested in at the time, and that can vary from, year to year and from regime to regime. So all of those things are kind of a bit of a guessing game. And also, fundamentally, at the end of the day, their job is to say no to people, because they have to reject essentially 90+% of the work that is submitted to them. And
So
that
it is
was
fairly competitive, obviously.
absolutely.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
And so I was kind of galvanized to try, and because I thought, well, one of my thoughts was, well, we can't all go running with our hands out to the film commission every time we want to make a film. It's just not, it isn't sustainable. And so how do we kind of maybe create a bit more of a culture where this is something that we can do, and maybe we'll get some post money from them or something like that, or whatever. So we, how can we sort of change this, and how can I sort of, I guess, take the power back, in the sense of, rather than being only beholden to this one entity. And I still have that feeling that that's something that we as filmmakers here in New Zealand need to think more about, as how do we not have to rely on them all the time, because you can't.
Yeah.
It's very different to America, where it's a business, right? It's the film business, and whereas here it's much more like the metric and measurement is not whether your film necessarily makes a lot of money. In fact, most films lose money. It's more about, did it get into good festivals? Did it win some awards? Was it
Right.
well reviewed?
Yeah, a different litmus, or a series of litmus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and that's what sort of, in a sense, what the podcast is about, are those films that you're describing. It's, I don't really make a point of covering the business, the Hollywood side of it, because they have enough
Yes, they do.
resources, right? To
Yeah,
get back
absolutely.
to your original paraphrasing. But and what is your sense of how, I mean, you're in Auckland. What is that, like a state?
It's a city, so it's
The city? Okay.
it's the biggest city in New Zealand.
Right. Okay. Let me rephrase then. So you're in the biggest city in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's probably where the majority of filmmakers live.
Yes, so I guess the largest chunk of the film industry is based here in Auckland. There is another significant chunk that is based in Wellington, which is where Peter Jackson resides, and his companies do. So a lot of filming on sort of bigger films and Weta Workshop, all those things are down there. So between Wellington and Auckland, but Auckland certainly would be taking a majority of the commercials of television, and certainly films and TV series that are shot would be mainly here. And in fact, that's why I originally moved, to the quote unquote big city, was for the film industry. And I originally lived in a town, a small city called Dunedin, which is at the bottom of the South Island, and much smaller, and really not that much going on in terms of a film industry.
What's the sort of sense of the size of the film community? I mean, are you talking about where you're maybe somebody like yourself, somebody who considers themselves a film director, filmmaker? Are we talking about maybe a couple of hundred people?
Yeah, maybe a couple of hundred, with another, few hundred, sort of up and comers, maybe, or people that are breaking in. I would say that's probably accurate of if you're describing, writer directors or directors, that would be probably about the spectrum at the moment. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm. And I'm certain there's at least a couple of film schools in Auckland.
Yes, that's right. There's two I think two film schools, and there's one in Wellington as well. The most well known is called the South Seas Film School, which a lot of people have been to at some point or another. So there are a few film schools, nothing like what you have in America with UCLA and not on
NYU.
NYU, thank you.
Yeah,
sorry. Nothing on that level, but definitely.
Well, that's also, I mean, in the scheme of things, it not is there's a lot of film schools now, but it wasn't always that way. The last 30, like festivals too. They've just sort of with the
exploded.
advent of inexpensive filmmaking, came film schools and film festivals. And, yeah. So have you had an opportunity to come to the States yet?
Yes. So for my first feature film, I went to the which is called I Survived a Zombie Holocaust, which is very much in the I Survived a Zombie Holocaust.
Oh, right.
So
yes.
So it's very much in the spirit of Peter Jackson's Brain Dead.
Right. Did that get into the Jewish film festivals?
Probably not. Obviously,
yeah.
The title is, to be honest, something that I regret, not so much because whether or not it's in poor taste, but more because, I'm thinking of Cannibal Holocaust and the original Zombie Holocaust. There is films with what I'm referencing to, but for the general public, they don't have any awareness of that. And, even to get sort of a little bit deeper into it, the naming was something that the lead character in the film would name his film, which was kind of cheesy and kind of, like an homage to that. But again, to people that aren't sort of filmmakers, this is really completely irrelevant. I thought I was being clever and I was being too clever for my own good. Had I, could I rename that now? Yes, possibly, but it's all sort of, that's what it's called now. But if I had like a take back on that film, it would probably be just changing the title, because it's even just like getting people to watch that. It's probably not at all what you expect, but it's hard necessarily to sell people on that. Obviously, there is no, it's got nothing to do with the real Holocaust at all. We're talking about the mass dying or the mass termination of zombies, but again, perhaps
of course. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. You have a good sense of humor, so I appreciate that. Well, the new one is it's just called Older, a potentially less controversial title.
Yes.
Which is and I really didn't know what to expect. I'm pleased that you reached out to me. I do encourage it, and people do reach out. And what was always my trust me, I mean, I've got my small little operation here as well. But my I guess intention from the start was that I would really watch anything people sent me,
Right.
And people would say, "Can I do your podcast? What have you?" I said, "Well, I do have to see the film first."
Yes.
I wouldn't. And then based on what my feeling is, and it's just my taste, I'm going to, or sometimes I see there's something in the project that would spurs like what I would think is a good conversation. Like maybe I would have you on with the film, even if I didn't think, Zombie Holocaust was, let's say, my cup of tea.
Yes.
But I said, but wait, you had the nerve to call it that. That's kind of conversation, could potentially be a reason why I might invite somebody.
Yes.
You never know. In this case, it was the quality of the film. You know, it kind of just has a certain, you know, aspects to it that are very traditional, but
Yes.
you know, you have a fresh energy in it, and you know, I guess in this time there's a lot of I don't know, maybe cynical
Yes.
feelings about the rom-com, about romantic comedies. Let's maybe it's the rom-com. It's time to let that term go. That might be part of it. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to call these, you know, romantic comedies. And I watch a lot of them. You know, like I was just actually posting something with this author who wrote a book on Cary Grant, and of course Cary Grant, so much like yourself. Uh,
There's
well,
so many
you know,
similarities. Yeah.
hey, look, you know, you're a young man. You have a lot of time ahead. Uh, but he did so many of those, you know, screwball comedies back in
Yes.
the 30s and 40s into the 50s. And I was been watching them, the classics, you know, and it's so rare to see, well, you know, just solid films like that again. And so your character is, what's his name?
Alex.
Alex. Very, you know, we don't obviously a New Zealand name, very hard to pronounce. I don't know what I'm going on about. But anyway, so and he kind of, you know, at that juncture where, you know, he's you know, grappling with these, you know, two kind of relationships, and
Yes.
kind of has a foot in both, and has difficulty kind of committing to what it is he really wants. And so I don't know, was this based on anything that you may have experienced in your life? Maybe not literally, but
Oh, look, absolutely. I would be lying if I did not say, you know, there was an element of, you know, semi-autobiographical, you know, nature to the story. And I think that we've all, you know, met, well, I'm not, maybe I'm overgeneralizing here, but I think that we've all met, you know, Jenny's and Stephanie's in our life. They're the two lead characters, and the two types of people, and kind of falling in love with a fantasy and perhaps ignoring something that's much more real and authentic in favor of the potential of this fantasy, which is never really necessarily true. And so I guess my whole intention for the film was, you know, as you said, like, I'm not a big rom-com guy personally, but I am a big fan of sort of you know, early Woody Allen films and Richard Linklater, and I guess what I would
I guess
define as
like the midnight films.
yeah, I love the huge inspiration before Sunrise, Sunset,
I
and
mean before, right, this that
um,
trilogy. Mhm.
yeah, and so I just like those walkie-talkie types of films where, you know, nothing too much happens, but we try and explore some interesting ideas, and, you know, everything seems real and authentic. And I think my issue with rom-coms has always been that they all seem so false. And what I wanted to try and do is, I guess, fit within the formula of a rom-com, but try and tell a much more honest, sort of realistic sort of love story. And so that was my sort of my motivation and my sort of inspiration for doing this. And also to get as far away as I could from sort of zombies and heads exploding and all that sort of thing, because I love genre films. I'm a huge horror fan,
Me too.
but I have at that time, especially in that time when I first started the film, like back in 2013, I was so burnt out with working on the first film and the sort of demands of that I had lost my love at that time of the genre, and I just wanted to go in completely the opposite direction. So all of those things sort of led me to the story of Older.
Um, and of course, I guess it refers to getting older,
That's right.
and kind of like sometimes you're dragged into it, you know,
Yep.
and you know, or kind of like the people that care about you are kind of like saying, you know, it's kind of time to grow up, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and Alex certainly is at that juncture in the film, um,
Yes.
and
Well,
yeah, what were we going
I
to
mean,
say?
well, our generation particularly has had the opportunity for a very extended adolescence in the way that our parents
Good point.
certainly did not have. So, you know,
That's
when
a good point.
as you turned a certain age, you married someone and you had kids, and that's just what you did, and that's what everyone did. And now there's a much more there's much less pressure necessarily to do that, and there's a much more sort of there's a group of people that are sort of completely unwilling to do that, and Alex sort of falls somewhere in that category. It's certainly at the start of the film where it's just this almost denial of those types of things. But I mean, as we do, I think what you find is that, you know, your friends do mature around you, and you sort of either get left behind or you sort of catch back up. Because, you know, people are still doing these things, whether it's just a little bit later or not. You know, these things happen. We still get together. We still find partners and have kids and all that sort of thing. You know, the world does not stop turning. But it's just having, I guess, the exploring the idea of, you know, someone stuck in that gray in between zone, and the reluctance to dip their toe into all of those things, all of what you would call, I guess, adulthood to some degree.
It's a good point. I think we've extended the generation here. I mean, we have the same sort of phenomenon in this country as well.
Mm,
You know, this interminable adolescence.
yes.
You know,
Yeah,
where you can. It's impressive how long you can keep it going if you really, if you
that's
want
right.
to.
Yeah, and
Um, yeah.
I think what I was trying to say too, at least to some degree, is by resisting all of that stuff, you are actually, I guess, losing out on a significant part of life, of what life can be and what life can mean. And you won't realize that unless you know, at some point, and embrace those things to some degree. This is coming from a man who is not married and does not have any kids, but I do have a long-term partner who I live with, and I'm sort of very happy. So it's you know, I think that it
That's
is a
good to
very
hear.
interesting concept of you know, can you really like live life and sort of really experience life if you shut yourself off to all those things? And I'm certainly not sure that you can.
Shutting off things like you're saying, um,
I guess it's sort of
which I
parent.
mean, shutting off things is in like the postponing of maturity
That's right. I guess that
and
sort
those
of
things that come with that.
yeah, that sort of Michael Jackson, Peter Pan syndrome, really,
Mhm.
where there's just this, well, no, I don't want to do any of those things. I don't want to accept these adult responsibilities. Like, I
Commit
can't,
to.
I want to remain too, I guess, I want to sort of look inwardly to myself rather than love or care about someone else as much as I do myself, whether that is a child or a partner. Those types of things, you know, the
Yeah, right.
sort of finding a level of empathy and humility that, you know, all those things that are probably vital to being a
Right. And a
well-balanced
relation,
person.
right. And a committed relationship sort of does kind of sum it all up in a way, like because it's a thing where it's always about compromise versus,
Yes.
um, selfish or self-directed instincts
Yep.
or motivations. Because, you want to be in a relationship where, you don't have to give too much, where you feel like you are lost or who
That's
you
right.
are is being compromised. And at the same time, though, it's all about figuring things out
Yep.
so everybody's feeling everybody's happy and feeling like they're being um, heard, and
Yeah.
you know
And also, I guess, having the you know, a I guess being willing to put your feelings out to get a little bit lost, you know, as in to lose yourself in someone else,
mhm.
and sort of to care about someone so much that, you know, their state of mind and their feelings greatly affect your own. rather than walling yourself off and sort of being emotionally protecting yourself.
Well, again, the name of the film is called Older, directed by a Guy Pigden. Is it Pigden?
Yeah, I'm very happy you got that right. I actually meant to bring that up to begin with because a lot
Me
of
too.
people, a lot of people think that it's pigeon or Pidgeon or some variation of that, but no, you got it right. It's Pigden, like a pig in a den. That's me, Pigden.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I've certainly had my own name mispronounced enough times. One too many consonants, I guess, or something. I'm not sure what it
Yeah.
is. Anyway, and it is on Amazon. You said Amazon Prime.
Yep, that's right. You can see
Why
it now
people-
on Amazon Prime. It's quote unquote free, as in if you're a Prime member, you can just stream it now. It's also on Tubi TV with some ads sprinkled in there, and you can also find all the links to it if you need to search olderfilm.com. That's our website. It's got all the details there, and you can find all that stuff.
It's been a delight getting to know you, and I look forward to your coming back.
Well, I know you often say this to your guests. You look forward to them coming back, and I noticed that you have many guests that do come back. So I'm sincerely going to hold you to that, and I will be back with my next one. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you giving me your time and having a great chat.
Well, it's my pleasure. Yeah, no, and I'm glad it worked out so easily. I've had a couple of. I have an Australian friend, I suppose. She's who's come on. I've had a number of occasions where I had to time this, so I kind of had a sense.
Yes.
You're 18 hours ahead, so you're well ahead on Wednesday already. I hope it's a good day. And yeah.
Terrible weather over here. It's been a storm over here, but it's just probably getting back to
do you
being
have to
normal
dress
now.
for the evening for this event?
Well, I
It's
think
a party?
probably you may have, when you're talking to Dustin, you probably got the impression that we're a pretty casual bunch, us Kiwis. We're pretty relaxed. So actually, I'm sure there will be some people that are maybe some of the actors from Actors Equity will be sort of dressed to the nines, but for the most part, it'll be t-shirt and jeans, and that's probably
Anybody else from your film going to be there? From
yes. So Leisha Ward Knox, who's the lead, who plays Jenny, who plays my love interest, and she's fantastic. She's actually popping by here beforehand, and we're going to head off to the awards together. So
you could have timed it a little bit better. We could have had a cameo.
I thought, yeah, well, she only messaged me just before we started and said, hey, should I come by before? I thought we were going to meet there. She's like, hey, can I come by beforehand and we'll go together? So otherwise, unfortunately, but there's always next time. I imagine she may well be in my next film.
That would be I like that idea. Again, harkening back to the golden age of Hollywood, you would have.
Yes.
I fell in love because I was watching all these Cary Grant films in preparation, as well as reading the book. So I'm very committed to being prepared. And I was and I have a certain affection for particular leading ladies. Leading men too, but I
of course.
Warm spot for, and I've always loved like Myrna Loy and Jean Arthur. They were my, like, if I was alive then, those I would have probably been trying to figure out, is there some sort of show I could do from home if only we had technology and I could now I can, but they're long gone, unfortunately. But I've only kind of, now somebody has moved up. It's like a chess game where somebody has sort of maneuvered to the front of the queue there, which is Irene Dunn. And I guess I just rewatched a couple of the films that Cary Grant did with her, one of which is called My Favorite Wife, and she's just so adorable. I mean, it's just, but so my point being, and there's usually a point, I usually forget what the point is, but it is that you can create this classic kind of couple down in New Zealand there.
I certainly hope so. And I will also just add that I'm a huge fan of Cary Grant myself. And we do sort of reference a Cary Grant film in Older. the film
forgot.
that we sort of that he's watching on screen is quite similar to His Girl Friday, but
Right.
is
That is a good one.
and that's probably my favorite of his. But
That's Rosalind Russell.
yes, and she is absolutely that's a phenomenal film. And I also know that Leisha is a huge fan of all his rom-coms as well. So there's that connection there as well. But yes, His Girl Friday is probably my favorite, I think. Or maybe I do like Arsenic and Old Lace, which is a little bit different, but
it is, and
entertaining.
I saw that many times as a kid. I went to this summer camp upstate New York, not too far from where I am actually, but and they used to show that film on 16 millimeter on rainy nights,
right,
during the summer, because they just had that in their small library. So I used to see that when I was a kid, and I really loved I thought it was just really entertaining. And actually, Cary Grant is very self-critical of that particular.
Really?
Yeah, because he feels he's too over the top, but he's so and he is. But if you really commit, it can work.
I 100% agree. So nothing to. That's interesting. He thought that, but I guess he is. But he's so good at it in all of that stuff. And
and I ended the conversation with my, Elena, I'm not a Brewster. I'm the son of a sea captain, whatever it was. It's a great film.
Awesome.
All right, well, I'll see you soon, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, man.
I'll be putting this up certainly on YouTube right away, and then eventually, as soon as I can, I'll put it on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Well, please flick me an email when it's up, and obviously I'll be sharing it on all my socials and all that sort of thing.
All right, great. All right.
Thanks, man. Well, till next time.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Have a good the rest of your day, your evening. Enjoy. Say hi to all your friends at the party.
Okay, thanks, man.
Right.
And you too. See you later.
Right. You bet. Bye-bye.